Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us again, talking about health and nutrition issues. Today, we're taking our camera all over the place, in dentist offices, in your mouth. Yes, that's right. You're going to see what goes on in there with the bacteria and the plaque and the dentine and the cavities. You're going to see the whole issue explored in depth. Are silver fillings safe, or are they made 50% of mercury, which leaches into the body and can exacerbate conditions as varied as chronic fatigue syndrome, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, muscular-skeletal conditions? You're going to find out whether or not fluoride is really all that it's been sold to be, that it prevents cavities. We should all be fluoridating our water and taking fluoride in toothpaste and mouthwash. There's another side to that issue. And what about the natural non-toxic ways of helping our body? Well, come along with me now as we take you on a two-part exploration, two programs on Dentistry, a Natural Approach.
I've seen 32,900 plus patients in my life. And it wasn't until I was 50 years old, I'd practiced for 20 years, before I realized how devastating the mercury poisoning was.
The United States Department of Health and Human Services reports in a 1996 toxicological profile for mercury, one of the most likely forms of exposure is by absorbing mercury vapors released from dental fillings. Most silver-colored dental fillings are about 50% metallic mercury and slowly release small amounts of mercury vapor.
We've been led to believe for over 150 years that mercury is a safe filling material and the best and most durable filling material that dentists can use. That is simply not true. It is true that it's durable, but it is absolutely not true that it is safe. And I first found out about this when I became sick myself from my mouthful of 17 silver dental fillings. I was so skeptical when someone told me that my fillings might be causing my illness that I simply did not believe them. And because I'm a trained researcher, I decided to do the research myself to find the answer. Were these fillings safe or are they not safe? And I can tell you that they are not safe. I called all of the major scientists who were doing laboratory research on these fillings. I interviewed them. I tape recorded the interviews. I transcribed them. I read all of their scientific papers. And I can tell you from my own experience that mercury amalgam silver dental fillings are not safe. They are toxic. They constantly leak mercury into the body, into the mouth air and the saliva of the person who has them, and that person swallows and inhales the mercury, and it accumulates in your tissue.
Well, a mercury filling cracks. 6 months later, a young Las Vegas woman is diagnosed with ALS, the fatal Lou Gehrig's disease. Within another 6 months, she can no longer walk or talk and has less than a year to live until she has all 13 mercury fillings removed. All symptoms of her fatal disease just disappear. Miracle recoveries like this one are taking place regularly, many at a controversial...
Well, I suppose I have a great many feelings about silver mercury fillings. They have been a real big part of my life over the past 23 years. I was quite surprised back in the early 70s to find out that the mercury came out of the fillings. I was more surprised to learn that it gave people diseases. And I was even more shocked to find out that when you take the fillings out, you can stimulate the body to heal. So I found that here we are running around with all these little time bombs in our mouths. Something like 85% of the population of the United States have these silver mercury fillings in their mouth. And the mercury comes out in an amount that's so measurable, you can take an industrial instrument, stick it in the mouth, and in 10 seconds, you've got a measurement. That's a fair amount of mercury coming out. Fair amount of mercury compared to what it takes to mess up the brain, the endocrine system, the nervous system, the immune system. What's it going to mess up? This is the big problem, because it may mess up one system in you, another system in me, and somebody else, it might mess up two systems that don't bother us at all. But the important thing is wherever mercury goes, it creates a problem. But you know, if it gave everybody a cold, we would have found out about it 160 years ago. Abraham Lincoln would have known it, because this is the type of fillings they were using back then. It's pretty much the same type of filling, except we've added more copper to it. The advantage of putting the copper in is that the mercury now comes out 50 times faster than the conventional amalgam of 20 years ago.
There are a number of people who have symptoms of, for example, chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia, lack of energy, who have had their fillings removed and had the fatigue and the lack of energy go away. There are a wide variety of symptoms associated with these dental fillings. One woman, for example, had chronic lower back pain that she could not get rid of. When she had her fillings removed, the back pain went away. There are also cases of people who have major illnesses like multiple sclerosis, who have their fillings removed and their symptoms subside.
We have seen patients with autoimmune diseases such as lupus. We have actually seen in some cases that blood tests have gone from abnormal to normal, indicating a clearing up of the situation. We have seen patients with multiple sclerosis who have improved after having the amalgams removed. We have seen people with chronic fatigue syndrome who have had a jump in their overall health when the amalgam fillings were removed and the mercury was removed from their body.
When people have mercury fillings removed, I was actually quite surprised at what I saw happening. I don't say to people, oh, you're going to get this, and you're going to get this, and this will get better, and this will get better. People say, well, what's going to happen? And I usually say, well, you tell me. And what I found, almost across the board, was people would report back, I have better memory. I'm surprised, but I have better memory now. I sleep better. And I never realized it, but I used to feel like my finger was stuck in an electric socket all the time. Now I don't feel that way anymore. That's universal. I also find people seem to do better with MS. As a matter of fact, I was so taken aback by the changes I saw with people with MS that I actually went to the MS Society, not to say this is a panacea, but as a dentist saying, look, I've seen a number of people who have had changes. I think you should look into this. And I was told by them that they felt this was just total dental abuse, at which point I said goodbye, thank you very much for your time, and I left. I've also seen marked increases or marked improvements in psoriasis, in arthritis, and in just about every form of self-immune or autoimmune diseases, including chronic fatigue, and in some cases, heart problems.
In our practice, we have noted that people may have one or two conditions and then that are kind of minor, and you put mercury in, the mercury filling, and whatever their genetic weak link is breaks. If it's in the neurological system, we could see multiple sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, the leukemias, tremors, Parkinson's. There's another one, Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is another one. And then you see a lot of symptoms too. The memory is probably the biggest thing. Chronic fatigue syndrome, PMS, these are the ones that would be probably the most common. But if you look at the stats, depression and anxiety, or I should say unexplained depression, unexplained anxiety, when you have a problem that you don't really know where it's coming from. You know, you wake up in the morning, the birds are singing and everything, and I think I'll go commit suicide. Suicide is present, and the suicidal thoughts are present in more than 70% of the patients that we saw over the period of the last 20 years. Why? Not that these are bad people. Where do these thoughts come from? This is a natural response to having mercury in the body, and those people are sensitive to it, and over 90% of the population is sensitive to mercury.
The most common symptoms of mercury toxicity that can be misdiagnosed or attributed to some other condition are fatigue, for example, depression, inability to concentrate, memory deficits, That's a very common symptom of mercury poisoning. Gastrointestinal tract problems, kidney problems, frequent infections, if you get a lot of colds and viruses in the winter. And all of those, as you can tell, are symptoms that could very easily be called something else. Some of the other symptoms are neurological. For example, nervousness, headaches, all of the symptoms of hypothyroidism. Everyone who has mercury in their dental fillings has hypothyroidism to some extent, because mercury interferes with the action of the thyroid gland and with the absorption of thyroid hormone into the body. So everyone who has silver fillings to some extent may have symptoms of hypothyroidism, which are fatigue, the desire to sleep a lot, sensitivity to cold and heat, dry skin, dry hair, brittle nails, lack of energy, inability to concentrate, irritability, mood swings. And basically, if you have symptoms of hypothyroidism, but you have mercury in your mouth, what will happen is that you will test normal on thyroid blood tests, but you will still have all the symptoms.
How could one thing cause all these problems? Well, because the enzymes that utilize zinc and the enzymes that utilize thiol groups, that's sulfhydryl groups, I don't want to get too technical, but mercury inactivates these enzymes. And they're all over in every cell. So it's not surprising that your cells start to become dysfunctional. And that's why mercury is such a successful poison. It will do you in on the installment plan if you have a small amount every day. If you have a large amount, you'll drop dead.
The American Dental Association has been intransigent in declaring that mercury is not a problem. Up until about 1985, they denied that there was any mercury that came out of fillings, that once you made an amalgam filling, it was forever. About 1985, they finally had to acknowledge that the scientific instrumentation couldn't be denied. It's there. And when you chew gum, for instance, and then put a probe into the mouth, we have been able to demonstrate concentrations of mercury in the air inside the mouth that exceed the limits that OSHA says is okay for industry. So people are breathing toxic levels of mercury.
The position of the American Dental Association, as published in their website, ADA Online, is that these fillings are safe. I do not have any idea why they are still giving out information of this kind, because the fillings are not stable and they are not safe. I would assume that probably it's very embarrassing to use a filling material for 163 years that turns out to be toxic. Probably they are trying to find substitutes, I don't know. But what does concern me is that a lot of people are sick because they have mercury toxicity from these fillings, and they really ought to know what is causing the problem so they can do something about it.
One of the things, the reason why the American Dental Association is so angry with us is this report right here, because we're showing the proteins in this column. They're coming down the spinal fluid. This is from a spinal tap. But 48 hours after the fillings are removed, look what happens in the second column. There's only one little bit of albumin here. The rest of these proteins leave. This rather shows that there's a difference in the spinal fluid in people with multiple sclerosis and amalgams, and with multiple sclerosis and without amalgams. There seems to be a link.
Now, there have been numerous studies by numerous groups about mercury fillings. I just want to mention one, which was actually done and published in the Journal of Prosthetic Dentistry in the August 1984 issue. What they did was they took patients and they tested their T-cell count. They took blood samples and found out what the T-cell levels were, and then they put mercury fillings in. Took another blood sample. The T-cell count went down by 35%. That's quite a bit. The T-cells are the ones that control your whole immune system. They took the mercury fillings out, took another blood sample, and lo and behold, the T-cell levels went right back up. The article concluded that mercury, and they had also done studies on nickel alloys as well, but that mercury and nickel alloys adversely affected the quality and the quantity of T cells.
What I can tell you is in the dental profession that it's been demonstrated dental assistants that work with mercury fillings have a much less, much reduced ability to conceive. They're infertile because of their handling of mercury.
Though the ADA recommends a no-touch technique when handling mercury amalgams, there are numerous studies to testify to the hazards mercury amalgams pose to the dental community.
So the problem is the ubiquitous, commonplace, everyday use of a poison that's denied being a poison. And here I am, 1996, trying to convince the listener that a poison is a poison. I couldn't make it up. It's so bizarre. But all right. We all have this poison in our mouths. It leaches out, leaks down our throats. Every day, drip, drip, drip. And little by little, poisons many of us. So you say, how could this be? They wouldn't do it. Goebbels, the propaganda minister for the Nazis, said, if you make the lie big enough, no one will have the nerve to doubt it. Mercury is a poison. If you don't believe me, open up your dictionary and go to the word periodic table. You'll see number 30 is zinc and number 80 is mercury. Any high school student of chemistry knows that number 80 will replace number 30, which means that the mercury replaces the zinc in your body, so that the zinc, which is absolutely necessary for your life, for your enzyme function, is now being replaced by the mercury, and your enzymes are being inactivated slowly, drip by drip by drip.
Okay, at this point we're going to remove the mercury filling.
It's extremely important that any patient who considers having their mercury removed, having their mercury fillings removed, consider this as a process. This is a medical and dental problem. I believe that anybody who contemplating doing this must be under the care of a physician along with a dentist, and the two of who are going to work together. Somebody has to be on a good diet, they have to have good supplementation, they have to have a laboratory test because the means of eliminating the mercury is through either the kidney or the bowel or the skin. And if there's a problem with kidney function or there's any kind of digestive problems, that patient is going to be releasing the mercury and it's not going to be coming out of the body, it's just going to be redistributed.
Well, we have been severely criticized for removing the mercury safely. So I guess dentists have a habit of touching nerves. I've hit somebody's nerve here. In our practice, we have what's called a bubble operatory. It's a bubble shape. In fact, somebody said the other day, it looks like a great big pumpkin. And I was insulted, and I looked at it, and it's kind of orangish. Looks like a great big pumpkin. It is round, and we have airflow coming in the top, going around the walls, being sucked out the bottom. That's called laminar airflow. So we control the airflow. We have negative ion generators in there, which pick up the particulates, charge the particulates in the air, clean that out in a very short period of time, just in a matter of seconds. We measure this to see. The water is all processed. The air is filtered and processed. The patient has a little sheet of rubber called a rubber dam with little holes in it, so it's somewhat isolates the exposure from the mouth because you get a real high absorption. The highest absorption in the external parts of the body is inside the mouth. So you got these fillings in here, and the mercury has no choice but to be absorbed as fast as it comes out of the fillings. So getting it out, we have high suction, we have a lot of water to keep the temperature down. Mechanically, we can do a lot of things to reduce the exposure to mercury vapor. But when you get the filling out, you've still got the mercury from yesterday in the body. And the detoxification of mercury is not necessarily the simplest part of what we do.
There have been many dentists who have been removing amalgam for some time with patchy results. In other words, there are some patients who get dramatic relief almost instantaneously, and others who go through this painful and expensive process and don't seem to improve. One of the most exciting parts of our investigational protocol is the realization that many of the patients who didn't improve may still have excess mercury in the body that is keeping them ill.
After each amalgam removal session, we apply neural therapy procedures, and these procedures help us detoxify the brain at a much faster rate. When the cell has become very toxic, either with the heavy metals and their vapors, the cell is not able to eliminate these toxins. While when we do the neural therapy, the cell wall has changed its ionic balance, and during that hour where the cell is completely anesthetized, the cell wall opens up and the toxins are eliminated.
There are a couple of nutrients that appear to be very helpful in mercury toxicity. Chlorella is one of them, and garlic is another. Those two supplements can be given prior to the removal of amalgams, and also they can be given after the amalgams have been removed to help to remove mercury toxicity. It's also very important to understand that the major neutralizer of mercury in the system is the mineral selenium. And selenium can be given also, and that reduces the toxicity. This is why people who eat fish that have mercury in them often do not suffer from as much toxicity, even though their hair analysis may show a high mercury, as people who get their mercury from their dental fillings, because the fish usually will take a selenium and neutralize that, that mercury with the selenium, and so it's somewhat less toxic, even though it may look worse on a, for example, a hair analysis.
If you are consuming caffeine, the mercury is not going to come out of the body. We call this retention toxicity. The body's retaining the mercury. So you have to go into the diet, watch the blood chemistry, and see how much carbohydrate, protein, and fat does a person need. I don't know by looking at them, but I do know by looking at their chemistry. So we go through the chemistry and educate the patient as to what food should be going in the system in order to encourage the mercury to come out. Then we look at other things, one of them being hair analysis to see what type of other heavy metals might be there, because heavy metals other than mercury can contaminate the cell membrane, so we don't get the oxygen going in and the carbon dioxide going out and the nutrient exchange. If there's a problem there, you're not going to get rid of mercury either. One thing that is real specific about the multiple sclerosis patient is their inability to sweat. This has been known since the 1800s. And when you've had an exposure to mercury, you lose a lot of your ability to sweat. So we have to teach people how to sweat. And we have a low temperature sauna. But while they have fillings in their mouth, if they get into a sauna, the mercury comes out, goes right into the brain, and they are blitzed and they feel awful. You know, MS patients cannot tolerate heat. So after we get all the mercury fillings out of the mouth, then we can put them in a low temperature sauna, which is 125 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, and start the process of sweating. And when they do break a sweat and they begin to get it appearing on the chest and on the forehead and the nose, then we'll take them out and put them into a shower to scrub that all off so it doesn't soak in again. Here you have to watch it because it can be overdone. Hot baths, Epsom salts baths, sodium bicarbonate, baking soda baths. There are several things that you can put into baths that will help bring it out. Again, timing is critical because the mercury comes out of the body, then goes up like this, and that's a real good time unless your brain's starting to fuzz out on you then. And you get above that, the core temperature of the body goes up, and this is not good. So you have to watch the detoxification procedures. Some of them are intravenous. Intravenous vitamin C does a good job from several aspects. Some people use EDTA, now they're using DMPS. A lot of four-lettered words are beginning to come into the vocabulary of these chelating agents. A chelating agent is one that will come in and attach itself to the heavy metal, then take it out in the urine, in the feces, but it's getting it out of the body. And all of them have effects and side effects. So it's a juggling act to see, we better use this for a while, then change to the sauna, then change to hot baths, then some of these things are given IV, some of them are given by capsule. You have to watch the patient to see what's doing your best job. Physically, you can see some of the signs and symptoms. If their symptoms begin, the original symptoms begin to come back, better back off on what you're doing or change into another system. Detoxification is fun because it's a three-dimensional chess game, and if you play it right, it works, your patient comes out of it.
There you have it. Of course, this controversy is going to rage on for a long time. After all, on one side you have probably 35,000 dentists who have a lot at stake if it's been shown that they've been putting toxic material into our mouths. Could you imagine, in a highly litigious society that we are, how many class action suits could keep these dentists in court for years, in effect bankrupt dentistry? On the other side, you have people like Dr. Hal Huggins, whose license was suspended for a year because they did not like his procedures. They didn't like him making statements that by taking the mercury out of the mouth, he could help overcome many conditions. But Al Huggins, for 25 years, has been a fighter. He's been a health advocate, and he'll continue making his stance and his position clear. It's up for you to look at all the issues and decide what is most reasonable, logical, and for your good well-being, what is in your best interest. I'm Gary Knoll. Thank you very much for watching.